You know what's weird? Before I write this script, I have a dentist appointment in a couple hours, but by the time you watch this video, I will have already had the appointment. I wonder if I made it. Or, well, I guess now that I'm recording it, I've since... no, I did not make it, actually. I died a couple hours ago at the dentist chair. Anyway, folks, the Tsaritsa and Ronova. Here we go. God versus Satan. Hope versus despair. A peaceful and permanent cessation of life versus a mass murderer. Lots to discuss and unpack here, so let's not waste any time. The two seem like they have a bit of a complicated history, or maybe they don't, as when the Tsaritsa makes her debut in the trailer, she's mid-story telling a story to someone and says the heavenly principles spoiled our love.
And then the heavenly principles spoiled our love.
What love is she referring to? Well, that's answered by the picture Ronova, the Shade of Death, is holding and ripping, that of the Tsaritsa, and apparently her son. Now, the obvious question becomes, who's the dad? Where is the dad? And, what's especially interesting about this topic is that Ronova is, for some reason, tearing the picture in half, cutting us off from seeing who is sitting to the right of the child. But this was no doubt the boy's father and Tsaritsa's lover. A seeming flashback further doesn't reveal who the father is, but it does confirm the Tsaritsa's son is also gone, as when the Tsaritsa touches her son and he freezes, she stands up and she's all alone. Further, she says aloud she doesn't know if this part of her life was ever even true, which means it was probably some time ago and is no longer relevant today.
I almost doubt whether it was ever true at all.
Now, before we get to the kid, I want to hone in on the father here and the picture as a whole, because this entire scenario raises a lot of questions. To start, where is he? Well, why is he absent from the scene as the Tsaritsa remembers it? Ronova tearing the picture in half is one thing, but when we're placed in the scene itself, he's still missing. Now, this is where the mystery gets even more bizarre, is the Tsaritsa never acknowledges her partner in the memory. The boy does, as if you look closely right at the start of the scene, he's looking to his right and his arm is outstretched in that direction. Now, I suppose it's possible he was just looking at his flower, but, given we know someone was sitting there, it's just as likely that's who the boy was talking to. But again, why is he not present from the view of the Tsaritsa, as whenever that side of the screen is alluded to, it's just represented by black, either from its perspective or from someone else's? And why would Ronova tear a photo in half to further obfuscate the man's identity? Folks, before we begin speculating on the identity of the man, what if for a moment we consider he no longer exists? Not physically, but the memory of him. I'm of course referring to Irminsul. What if, for some reason or another, his identity was wiped clean from Irminsul by the heavenly principles? This could help to clear up why we can't see the man from the Tsaritsa's perspective, but this could also help to explain why not only Ronova is in possession of a picture of the Tsaritsa and her family, but why she's tearing it in half, because this picture in and of itself should not exist. It contains an individual that was removed from the world's memory, so Ronova is herself removing the man from the picture. To the best of my knowledge, we have no idea what happens when a picture is containing someone removed from Irminsul, so this could very well be a contradiction that Renova's taking care of. Now, where this gets even stranger is if we consider the Tsaritsa's lover, their identity, to be that of a descender, specifically the third, which brings us to the topic of who exactly is the Tsaritsa's lover, or the possible candidates. Well, to start, I want to discuss everyone's seemingly favorite candidate, Saaralainen, or as some may know him better, the third descender. I guess on the surface it makes sense. The Tsaritsa wants to put together her lover and, strike the heavenly principles with the descender, but there are some major problems with this. The timing, first of all, just makes zero sense, right? The third descender was killed by the heavenly principles shortly after the War of Funerary Flame, but at the very least before the start of the Archon War several thousands of years ago, yet it was only after the Cataclysm 500 years ago something happened to cause the Tsaritsa to go berserk, and presumably that's when she lost her family.
How should I put this? 500 years ago, I knew her well, but I can't say the same is true now. You see, a certain catastrophe happened 500 years ago, and after that, she cut off all ties with me.
Given her son was still a child, that would indicate to us she had had him shortly before the Cataclysm, which then makes the timing of the third descender being the Tsaritsa's lover impossible, because the third descender was long dead way before the Cataclysm. But What if something strange is going on here? Remember, we speculated earlier the reason the lover of the Tsaritsa is obfuscated from view is because they might have been removed from Irminsul, but this wouldn't hold true if that person was a descender. Remember, descenders are external to the world of Teyvat, so there's no records of them in Irminsul to be wiped to affect everyone's memories, but does that really mean a descender can't be wiped from this world's memories? Dottore revealed to us something strange about the death of the third descender. He said, quotes, "Even the lesser Lord Kusanali was once moved by the secrets Piero holds. 4 descenders have come to Teyvat, and the third was erased for violating the one rule, though the method of that erasure remains a mystery. The third descender was erased, but they can't be erased from Irminsul, so by what mechanism does one erase a descender from this world? No one, not even Dottore, apparently knows, but if the Tsaritsa's lover is the third descender, then perhaps the reason we can't see them, and Ronova's tearing the picture in half, is because they were erased." Now, straight up, let a nigga level with you, I don't think the third descender is the Tsaritsa's lover, because for the third descender to be the Tsaritsa's lover, it would seem they'd need to be Conrian, given the boy has star-shaped pupils and the Tsaritsa doesn't, so the father evidently must carry the gene of star-shaped eyes. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the father is from Conria, I suppose, as there is one person out there in all of Teyvat with star-shaped eyes that isn't from Conria. Matter of fact, they existed, before Conria, and that is Sudurvoinen, who was Koitar, or the First Angel's lover. In short, Sudurvoinen was a voyager from beyond Teyvat who visited the worlds, took over a young boy's body, did blasphemy bullshit with Koitar, and the two were separated and cursed by the heavenly principles. No one currently knows where Sudurvoinen is, as last we heard Skirk was looking for them. Now, the reason I bring this up is not because I think a grown-up Sudurvoinen is the Tsaritsa's lover, but because we don't know if the star-shaped pupils came from that boy being possessed or the voyager possessing the boy. Now, it's likely it was the voyager, as surely otherwise there would have been more people from Hyperborea possessing those eyes. Now, assuming the Tsaritsa's lover was a Conrian, I don't think we know enough about the fucking people in Conria to start throwing out identities. None of the small lists of Conrian names we've heard of fit. So, where does that leave us with regards to the identity of the Tsaritsa's husband? Before I'm a Genshin theorist, I'm a real nigga, so fuck it, I'm just gonna say it. I don't know. Anyway, next topic. Ronova, what's she up to? Did she kill the Tsaritsa's family? Maybe, but I'm sure if she did, it was justified and it wasn't personal. If the Tsaritsa's family was Conrian, this raises some interesting possibilities. Yeah, it would make sense then why, there appears to be some real tension between the Tsaritsa and Ronova. Ronova hit her family with the hand of God, and perhaps the Tsaritsa's child isn't actually dead, but this scene is symbolic of something, and the Tsaritsa did actually freeze her child to prevent him from turning into a hilly churl and doing the fucking Unga Munga dance, as the child, if Conrian, would be a half-breed, given the Tsaritsa herself is not Conrian, but if the father was Conrian, then, curse of the wilderness. But at the same time, despite us seeing the two about to square off, listen to the Tsaritsa's own words.
Death is not the enemy of love.
Death being Ronova is not the enemy of love being the Tsaritsa. Now, whether or not that's what she meant is, up in the air for now, but it could be she means it, and again, a more symbolic way, yes, death is good, but what Renova's done to the people of Conria, and potentially her own child, is deny them death, as Ronova plays the curse of immortality unto all. Still, one has to wonder in the midst of all this, why Ronova cares, Assuming there's no funny shenanigans going on, the Tsaritsa's only connection to Ronova, should be this incident, given the Tsaritsa only became Archon after the Cataclysm, so they shouldn't have interacted with one another, but, given Venti knew the Tsaritsa before the Cataclysm, it would seem the Tsaritsa still mingled with the gods to an extent, so where does this leave us? The Tsaritsa had a lover, and they made a baby, and the child with star-shaped eyes similar to that of Conrian's, and the husband whose identity is unknown is being shielded from view by Ronova. The Tsaritsa blames the heavenly principles for the potential death of her family, which should have happened around 500 years ago, and blames the blessings given by deluded gods, referring to the heavens. Renova's role in all this is still a bit unclear, even if it was the wide-ranging curse that anchored the Tsaritsa. Why does Ronova personally care so much to the point she's in close contact with the Tsaritsa and holding a picture of her family. Blue's Clues, but, that's all I've got, so join me tomorrow night as we discuss the plethora of ways in which that bitch Rhine daughter should be executed. Good day and good night.